You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
BlackRock is now the gatekeeper to billions of dollars entering the Canadian housing market to buy up homes and condos. We're going to get into exactly what is going on. You will own nothing and be happy, remember. That's what the elites want you to believe. But this is actually happening, and we're going to get into the mechanics behind it and how BlackRock is actually the gatekeeper for a lot of this money entering into the housing market that is currently sat there on the sidelines. So we're going to go through everything and the investment equation and why potentially they're looking at doing this. So here you have it from the Toronto Star. As Toronto condo sales flounder, one group is betting big and buying up units in bulk. So really interesting what's going on here. So some realtors say there is somewhat a surprising group that's starting to snatch up these listings known as assignment sales. Obviously, we know what they are. They were the key to the speculation that was going on with home prices, in particular condo prices in the Toronto area and in other major cities like Vancouver.
And now I have a mortgage on this property for $300,000 and I don't own it.
So we'll get to that, and Toronto isn't necessarily similar to Vancouver, and this has happened across Canada. New condo towers have been flung up in pretty much all Canadian cities, so this is something that concerns everybody in the country, and it's something that is happening on a global scale as well in the United States and also in European countries in the UK as well. So private equity and investment funds are betting that things will turn around in a few years, a sign the market may be at or near the bottom. Now, these funds are massive amounts of money, so this is something that you definitely need to pay attention to, and we have to get into the fundamentals. Is there a good argument for why these funds are actually buying, or are they just trying to catch a falling knife? That's really what we're going to get into. So there's a lot of these funds that we work with, like equity funds, and they're buying them in bulk. So remember that, equity funds. They're buying them, they're renting them out, and they're keeping them until 2030, 2031, and they're flipping them. So they're buying them with the intent of actually selling them at a higher price point later down the road, and in the meantime, renting them out. And these funds, they have a lot of money, and BlackRock is the key to why this money is entering the housing market. And other pension funds, believe it or not, the money you allocate towards your pension is actually going back into the housing market to make housing more expensive for you. I mean, it's just complete insanity, the things that go on. But people need to hear the bitter truth of what's happening out there. So speculation drove up prices so high that near the height of the Toronto real estate market in 2022, pre-construction units were 40% more expensive than recently built ones already on the market, according to Urban Nation. And here's an example of some of the losses that people are now taking in the market. For example, a recent 3-bedroom unit in the Good condos at Parliament and Front Streets was advertised in a Facebook group for an assignment sale at a $300,000 loss. Enter private equity and investment funds. These funds are forecasting a 5-year exit to the condo market downfall. So they're looking to buy deals today. And this is no different to what Wall Street did in the United States in the wake of the financial crisis. And they're still doing it today, buying up single-family homes. Wall Street has purchased hundreds of thousands of single-family homes since the Great Recession. But BlackRock, the reason why they're involved with this is because they've managed these huge funds. So these huge funds where people invest money into them, basically BlackRock is the gatekeeper for these funds that then go out into the market and they buy this real estate. So when these things are rising in value, when there's more flows going into funds like this, that money has to go somewhere. And it's a real estate investment trust. And now they're eyeing up, guess what? Condos. And in particular, pre-construction condos. So it's a big gamble that they're betting on, but there might actually be some logic behind it, which is what we're going to get into, both sides of this argument. So it's fair. And you've got it here here from the Financial Post as well, as Canada's condo market swoons, private equity is circling. Very interesting. A wild card could be private equity groups, which are already eyeing inventory in Toronto and Vancouver, hoping to profit from a turnaround in the same way corporate buyers did in the United States during the 2007 to 2010 US subprime housing crisis. So it's interesting that they compare it to that for starters, because obviously a lot of people are saying, oh, this isn't a crash, nothing to see here, nothing going on. But it's very interesting because it's a lot of money. We're talking about billions of dollars, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, which are invested in these real estate investment trusts, which could be buying up assignments very soon. I have been approached by some major players across the country who have floated the idea for me to assist them in acquiring distressed condo projects that are built and sitting empty, said Goodman. They would come in and buy hundreds, if not thousands of units in one fell swoop. And where are they getting the money? They're getting them from flows like things going through funds like this, which are managed by BlackRock. And it's so interesting, isn't it? Because the you will own nothing and be happy narrative that has been talked about for years is now happening in real time in front of people's eyes, but they don't even know about it. That's exactly why I'm exposing it on a live stream and a video like this. It's because people need to know that this stuff is going on behind the scenes, because most don't even know that BlackRock, because they're not even mentioned in any of these articles, is actually massively involved. In fact, I mean, they're the starting of these funds. They're the key managers and key players which manage these massive pools of money, which are going to get allocated to pre-construction condos if what happens in this article goes ahead. And take a listen to this guy's story, because this is yet another person who's lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in the Canadian housing market. So take a listen to this on what this guy's story is.
It's sad because you put, your life savings into something, and then all of a sudden it just gets taken away from you.
Victor originally purchased a 2-bedroom, 3-bathroom unit at this condo building behind me here in Vaughan back in 2020, but has now lost hundreds of thousands of dollars and could potentially be on the hook for up to $100,000 more for a property he doesn't even own.
We bought it for approximately $675,000. We gave the builder 20% down of that, and then now at closing, the appraisal came in at $590. So there's that huge difference.
So he's short a lot of money there, and obviously he can't get the mortgage. That's a problem that he's struggling with because the appraisal has come in lower. So obviously he's not using the Royal Bank of Canada because they're doing blanket appraisals last time I checked. So, his story is similar to one that we went through just 3 or 4 months ago. But that is exactly why you've got these private equity funds that are looking to profit from all these people's misery right now. And it's really interesting because if this happens, it'll essentially mean condos never become affordable for people. What are they doing at the end of the day? They're renting them out, as they said.
Between what we bought it for and what the condo is actually worth.
What we're seeing in the market is, prices coming down, and people who purchased condos a few years ago, pre-construction condos, who have not secured their mortgages properly are finding out now when it's closing that the appraisals come in lower, and
leaving purchasers on the hook to the developer for that difference in price, with many unable to afford it. Experts say realistically buyers have 3 choices: to either close on the property, reassign the property to a new buyer, or default on the contract and risk being sued.
We have to price assignments basically where the market is, or maybe a little bit even below the resale value, because of the high closing costs that they're going to.
And remember, guys, they were saying that at one point these assignments, they were actually selling at a 40% premium, and now they're selling at a massive discount. So take a listen here.
Deals nowadays, I would say if they bought in 21, 20% loss. So if they bought a deal for $1 million and they put 200 grand down, we're probably selling that deal for, let's just say, 700 grand that was bought for $1 million. So they got to come up with an additional 100,000. So a lot of deals today, the sellers are actually paying the buyers to get out.
That phenomenon seen in listings for reassignment deals flooding social media groups as desperate sellers sellers hope that a buyer will take the property off their hands. He asked to reassign his unit to a new buyer. However, the builder denied the request and terminated his offer.
So what does that mean for you?
Means that I lost my 20%, and now they're sending me letters saying that they're gonna sell it.
So he lost $135,000, his 20% down payment, and of course they're trying to sue him also now for the difference. So it's absolutely insane where the condo market is right now, and I want you guys to let me know below, do you think this is the bottom in the condo market? I mean, if private equity is coming in, do you think that's going to mean the bottom is near? So average asking rents fall for 16th straight month, and this is highly important to the question of whether they're going to be buying in today's market, because they're also looking at the returns they're getting from rents, and right now they're still in decline. But we have to try and figure out here whether rents could bottom out even this year as well, which again, they would be right there willing to buy all that inventory and capitalize on the rising rents and potentially the rising prices, because at the end of the day, if hundreds of billions of dollars from private equity firms floods into the market, of course that's going to drive up prices. And then here comes back the speculation again. So if you take a look at the rental report here, February 2026, you can basically see average rents across the country are down 2%. If you look at Alberta, down 4.6%, and they've been going down a lot, massive percentages. British Columbia down 5.2%, Ontario off 3.5%, Quebec 3.2%, and obviously you've seen the speculation that's been going on in places like Montreal, and you've now got rents in reverse, so that makes it very, very difficult. So you can see some places the rents are down like 10%, like in Brampton, also in places like BC as well, so some pretty steep rent declines. You've also got Mississauga there, rents are down 9.8%. So that is a lot when you really think about it. So now we've got to think, well, if rents are in decline, is this likely to be ending anytime soon? And it's pretty hard to take a look at this because we have to obviously look at government data, which we will do, but without a census and knowing what the median average income is, it's pretty difficult to do because you're still looking back at like 2021 data, for example. So that's old. So we have to use the average government data, which I don't like and I'm not a fan of, heavily skewed. So condo crash pushes down Toronto asking rents to $2,500 a month due to sheer volume of supply. So this is why the rents are going down. Sheer volume of supply that's entered the Toronto market in the last 2 years is a big reason why the rents have dropped. You also have to ask the question about incomes, because obviously if incomes are actually going down, then that's not a good thing. That's not good for rental prices, because yes, they can kind of decouple from incomes, but they can't do that forever. That's not something that's sustainable long term. So if you take a look at 2021, for example, let's take August here. So $27.41 an hour was the average hourly wage. It's now up at $32.56. So the difference between them there is around 18.7%. So bear that in mind. So now if we take a look at this here, this is what's key. So a report from rentals.ca and Urban Nation says that rents fell to their lowest level in 31 months in January and were down 6.3% compared with 2 years ago, but that's still 12.9% higher than the levels before the pandemic. But get this, wages, at least according to the government data, are actually up 18.7% since 2021. So it's really interesting, and I don't believe that number for a second, by the way, but it's the only number we've got right now, unless we're just looking at 2021 data, which is really old. So that means there could really be a bottom in the market soon once it ends the massive supply of condos that are going for rent there. And you can pretty much see this is why it's happening. It's just absolutely skyrocketed in 2025, and this is the months of supply for pre-construction. But if we go to this RBC report, what you've also seen happen towards the end of 2024 and into 2025 is you've seen pre-construction sales tank and the starts go with them in places like Toronto. So that's something you got to think about, because obviously if the starts are falling massively, that means I think think in the future, this is just my opinion, you can disagree with me on it, I think that rents will bottom out in some places like Toronto and Vancouver, possibly this year, possibly next year. And what that means for private equity, well, they're stood there right away waiting to buy and profit from everybody's misery, including those that are sat on the sidelines right now because they can't afford to get into the market and they want to get into the market. Now, I personally believe that condos are a terrible investment and they're a complete scam because of the fees associated with them and other different things. They're just a complete nightmare, especially as a long-term investment thing. But these private equity funds, they're not thinking long-term. They just want to hold them for 5-6 years. So it's incredibly interesting what's going on there. And essentially, it's something you've really got to think about. What do you think of BlackRock's involvement with all this? And obviously, BlackRock, the CEO, Larry Fink, is incredibly involved with the World Economic Forum. So, I mean, it just shows you how it's all tied together. If you've enjoyed this video, I would highly recommend that you check out this video here. If you want to help support the channel, check out the links in the description below. It's much appreciated. I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.